Listen to me. You will never reach the top until you learn how to master yourself. You want power. You want greatness. You want to walk in rooms and own your space. Then you got to understand this. Discipline is the gateway. Self-control is the key. Self-control is the key to power. It is the foundation that separates those who only dream from those who execute. Many people believe that motivation is what drives success, but motivation is fleeting. It comes and goes like the wind, easily influenced by mood, weather, or circumstance. One day you're fired up. The next day you're dragging your feet. If you rely solely on motivation, you'll only be consistent when life feels easy. And that's not when power is built. Real power comes when you show up even when you don't feel like it. It's built in the moments when no one is watching, when the camera's off, when the crowd isn't cheering. That's when self-control kicks in. When you develop self-control, you take control of your life. You stop reacting to everything and start choosing your responses. You don't let emotions dictate your actions. You let purpose do that. Every single powerful individual you admire has mastered this trait. They've learned to control their impulses, delay gratification, and stay committed when distractions are pulling at them from every angle. That's not natural, it's trained. Self-control is a muscle, and you have to work it daily. Just like you don't walk into a gym and bench press 300 pounds on your first day. You don't wake up with iron discipline. You build it one rep at a time, one decision at a time. Think about the moments when you've made progress in your life. They probably weren't the easiest times. They weren't the days when everything felt perfect and smooth. No. Your greatest growth came from those moments when you pushed through discomfort, when you held the line even when everything in you wanted to quit. That's self-control. That's power. It's not flashy. It's not loud. It doesn't always get applause. But it produces results, and results don't lie. We live in a world that celebrates speed and comfort. Fast food, quick money, overnight success. But the truth is, none of that builds real lasting strength. What builds power is doing the hard thing over and over again until it becomes second nature. Waking up early when your body wants to sleep in. Saying no to distractions when your mind is craving an escape. Choosing the gym, the book, the work, when the couch is calling your name. Every time you make that hard choice, you take back control. You reinforce your power. There is a difference between people who succeed long-term and those who burn out after the initial hype. That difference is self-control. Hype fades, passion simmers down, but discipline, that sticks. Self-control is what keeps you going when no one claps for you, when progress feels slow. When doubts creep in, it's your internal anchor. Without it, you'll drift, chasing whatever feels good in the moment instead of what builds you up in the long run. And here's the secret most people miss. Self-control is not about punishment. It's not about restricting yourself just to suffer. It's about choosing what you want most over what you want now. You want power. Then you have to train your mind and body to align with that goal. You have to stop negotiating with your lower self. The one that says, just 5 more minutes of sleep or one day off won't hurt. No, every time you listen to that voice, you give away power. Every time you shut it down, you gain it. That power is not about control over others. It's about control over yourself. You can't lead others if you can't lead you. You can't win battles in the world if you're losing the war inside. If your emotions run you, if your cravings dictate your day, if your habits keep pulling you backward, then you're not walking in power. You're walking in permission for weakness, for inconsistency, for excuses. But the moment you decide to master yourself, to build self-control like a weapon, everything changes. You start setting the tone instead of reacting to it. You stop blaming others and start owning your path. The most dangerous person in the room is not the loudest. It's the one with quiet control. The one who doesn't get shaken. The one who can hold steady in chaos. Who doesn't need external validation to stay on course. That's self-control. That's power. And it's available to you, but only if you decide to fight for it daily. It's built in the little choices, the habits you create, the boundaries you enforce, the sacrifices you make. Not once, but every single day. Discipline over feelings is the mindset that separates winners from wishers. Feelings are fickle. They fluctuate, they lie, and they often push us toward comfort instead of growth. Discipline, on the other hand, is steady. It doesn't care how you feel. It doesn't ask if you're tired, bored, unmotivated, or stressed. It simply says, do what you said you would do. That's the foundation of greatness, doing it regardless of mood, energy, or circumstance. Because the truth is, if you only move when you feel like it, you'll never get anywhere worth going. Success doesn't respond to feelings. It responds to action, consistency, and sacrifice. Doc, when you allow your feelings to dictate your effort, you become a slave to emotion. You hit the gym when you're hyped, but skip it when you're tired. You show up for your goals when the weather's good, but disappear when things get uncomfortable. That kind of inconsistency kills momentum. And the most dangerous part is, it doesn't happen overnight. It happens quietly in small compromises. You tell yourself, it's just one day. You say, I'm not in the mood. You convince yourself that motivation will return tomorrow. But tomorrow becomes next week becomes next month. And before you know it, you've lost ground. Discipline is what you fall back on when motivation is gone. It's the system, the structure, the understanding you've built for yourself. And it's forged through repetition. Every time you act in spite of your feelings, you strengthen that muscle. You prove to yourself that you're in control, not your emotions, not your mood, not your environment. That's power. That's maturity. That's how people break cycles, build businesses, transform bodies, and change their lives. Not through hype, not through bursts of inspiration, but through daily discipline. Feelings are great indicators, but terrible leaders. They can tell you something about where you are, but they should never decide where you go. If you let your emotions steer the wheel, you'll crash. You'll give up too soon. You'll take shortcuts. You'll justify quitting. But when discipline takes the lead, you stay on course even when the path is uphill. You don't back down when it's inconvenient. You don't need permission from your mood to move forward. You do it because it's what needs to be done. There's a myth that says you have to feel passionate all the time to be successful. Then you have to be in love with the grind every single day. But real talk, there will be days you hate it, days you're bored, frustrated, exhausted. And those are the days that matter most, because anybody can put in work when they're excited. Anybody can hustle when the results are showing up fast. But champions, they keep going even when it's slow, even when it's silent, even when it's silent, even when the progress feels invisible. That's discipline. That's choosing to honor your commitment over your comfort. Every time you obey your feelings instead of your principles, you lose a little power. But every time you choose discipline, you build trust with yourself. You prove to your mind and body that your word means something. That when you set a goal, it's not up for negotiation. That kind of self-respect can't be bought. It's earned through consistency, through doing it when it's hard, through rising up when every part of you says lie down. Most people live in reaction mode. They wake up and check how they feel, and that determines the pace of their day. But the most successful people in any field don't do that. They have routines, systems, and disciplines that run regardless of how they feel. They don't skip work just because they're not in the mood. They don't stop training because they're sore. They don't walk away from the mission because the fire inside flickered for a moment. They keep going. They keep going. Because they know that how you feel today doesn't define where you're headed. What defines your future is what you do today. It's not about ignoring your emotions. It's about mastering them. It's about mastering the feeling and choosing a higher path anyway. That choice, repeated over time, changes everything. It shifts your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who needs to feel ready and start seeing yourself as someone who shows up no matter what. That shift in mindset is where real power lives. Because once you stop relying on feelings and start building through discipline, you become unstoppable. You get up earlier than the rest, not because you feel like it, but because your goals demand it. You study harder, train longer, stay focused, not because it's easy or fun, but because you made a decision. And disciplined people stick to decisions long after the emotion that made them fades. That's where breakthroughs happen. That's how you separate from the pack. That's how you rise, while others stay stuck in the cycle of feeling good one day and quitting the next time. Mastering yourself is the beginning of mastering your life. The truth is, nothing external is more powerful than the force inside you. The greatest battles you will ever face are not against competitors, critics, or circumstances. They are against your own thoughts, your impulses, your distractions, your fears. When you truly understand that the enemy is not out there but in here, everything changes. You stop blaming others. You stop waiting for the right moment. You stop looking for someone to save you. You look in the mirror and you decide that today, the battle begins with you. Most people spend their lives trying to control things they can't, other people's opinions, the economy, their past, even the weather. But none of that builds strength. Real power starts when you take full responsibility for your attitude, your reactions, your focus, your habits. That's the only arena where you have full control. And yet that's the place most people avoid. Why? Because it's hard. It's easier to point fingers. It's easier to say, I would have done more if I had better support, or if my situation was different, I'd be further. But that mindset keeps you weak. It keeps you stuck. It keeps you living beneath your potential. That self-mastery means you lead yourself even when no one else is watching. You show up when there's no applause. You stay disciplined when no one's holding you accountable. That's integrity. That's the real test. Because when you can direct your own thoughts, your own energy, your own choices without needing external pressure, you've tapped into something most people never find. True control. You're no longer a victim of circumstance. You're a product of decision. And that decision starts every morning, every hour, every second. When you choose who you're going to be in that moment, doesn't matter how gifted you are. If you can't control your mind, your emotions, and your actions, you will sabotage your own success. You could have the talent, the opportunity, and even the resources. But if you can't say no to distraction, if you can't manage your time, if you can't resist short-term pleasure for long-term gain, you will watch your potential slip through your fingers. Self-mastery is the shield that protects your purpose from your own sabotage. It's what keeps you locked in when your emotions try to pull you in the wrong direction. Mastering yourself means you learn how to delay gratification. You learn how to say no when everyone else is saying yes. You learn how to endure discomfort because you're focused on the bigger picture. You don't need to chase every dopamine hit. You don't need to respond to every notification, every craving, every emotion. You learn how to sit in the stillness, how to keep working even when the results aren't showing up yet, how to believe in yourself even when doubt tries to take over. That's not something you're born with. It's something you train for. It's something you build through repetition and intention. People think control is about being rigid or emotionless, but that's not true. Mastering yourself doesn't mean suppressing your feelings. It means understanding them, processing them, but not being ruled by them. It means choosing to respond instead of react. It means holding back when you want to lash out, staying focused when you want to quit, staying calm when everything feels chaotic. That kind of strength is rare, but it's what separates those who live on purpose from those who live in regret. If you can't lead yourself, you can't lead yourself. You can't lead others. You can't expect to influence the world if you haven't conquered your own world first. Leadership starts within. Confidence starts within. Discipline starts within. And once you gain control of your inner life, the outer world starts to respond differently. Opportunities show up. Relationships get healthier. Goals become more attainable. Not because the world changed, but because you changed. The moment you stop negotiating with your excuses and start holding yourself to a higher standard, is the moment everything begins to shift. You stop letting bad habits run your day. You stop letting fear talk you out of taking action. You stop waiting for permission to go after what's yours. You become the kind of person who doesn't need perfect conditions to move. You just move. You just move. And with every act of discipline, with every time you silence that lazy voice inside, with every time you push past what's comfortable, you grow. Now, this isn't about perfection. It's about progression. It's about getting a little sharper every day. It's about being honest with yourself, calling yourself out, pushing yourself forward. You're not in competition with anyone else. You're in competition with your lesser self, the version of you that procrastinates, the version of you that makes excuses, the version of you that settles for average. And every time you master your thoughts, your reactions, your energy, you create distance between who you are and who you used to be. That comfort is the enemy of growth. It's the silent killer of dreams, the slow poison that keeps people stuck in the same place year, hoping things will change while doing nothing different. Comfort feels good in a moment, but it comes at the cost of progress. It tells you to relax when you should be grinding. It whispers, You've done enough when you know there's more in you. It convinces you that taking it easy is the reward, when the truth is, the reward comes after you've endured the discomfort that growth demands. You can't become stronger if you only train when it's easy. You can't become disciplined if you only act when you feel like it. Growth requires tension, resistance, and pressure. Just like muscles are built by being torn and repaired through training, your character is built by being tested and refined through challenge. Comfort avoids all of that. It says, stay where it's safe, but greatness has never lived in the safe zone. Everything you want, every dream, every level of excellence, they're sitting just outside your comfort zone, waiting to see if you're willing to stretch, to push, to go beyond what's easy. Most people don't fail because they're not capable. They fail because they're not willing to be uncomfortable. They don't want to wake up early. They don't want to study longer. They don't want to take that risk or endure that rejection. But the truth is, if you want to be extraordinary, you have to do what ordinary people refuse to do. And that means saying no to comfort. Not once, not sometimes, but consistently. Every single day, you have to choose discomfort when comfort tries to seduce you into standing still. That comfort is deceptive. It doesn't show up with warning sign. It creeps in slowly. It disguises its self-care as rest, as a just one day off. But one day becomes two, and two becomes a week. And suddenly the fire that was burning inside of you starts to dim. You stop chasing the goal and start making peace with mediocrity. You start settling. You stop pushing. And without even realizing it, you've traded growth for ease. The ones who win, the ones who rise, are the ones who get addicted to challenge. They find a way to be comfortable being uncomfortable. They stop waiting for the perfect time and just get to work. They're not afraid to be stretched, to be tired, to be doubted. They understand that growth never feels good in the moment, but it always pays off later. They run toward the hard things because they know that's where the real change happens. There's a reason the best athletes, the best leaders, the best performers in any field live in a state of challenge. They don't avoid pain. They embrace it. They don't complain about struggle. They train through it because they know every rep, every early morning, every sacrifice compounds. It may not show right away, but it builds. It hardens your mindset. It sharpens your focus. It forges a level of mental toughness that comfort could never produce. You don't grow in silence and softness. You grow in the grind. The early hours, the lonely nights, the moments of doubt, the pressure to perform. These are the fires where greatness is forged. And you don't get access to those places by playing it safe. You only get there by doing what most people won't. That's the price. That's the tax you pay for being exceptional. You have to get uncomfortable enough to stretch, humble enough to fail, and hungry enough to keep showing up. Growth demands sacrifice. It demands that you let go of your excuses, your distractions, your habits that give short-term pleasure but long-term regret. Comfort gives you moments of escape. Discipline gives you a life of meaning, but you can't have both. You have to choose. Every single day, you are either moving closer to your goals or drifting further away. And the difference lies in what you're willing to endure. Comfort tells you that life should be easy. Growth teaches you that life is about rising to challenges. The sooner you stop avoiding pain and start facing it, the sooner you'll step into your potential. Everything worth having sits behind the wall of discomfort. You want confidence? Go earn it by doing what scares you. You want purpose? Go find it in a task that tests your limits. You want strength? Build it by staying in the fire. When everyone else runs from the heat, there's no breakthrough without struggle. No transformation without tension. No glory without grit. And the moment you embrace that reality, you become dangerous because now you're not controlled by comfort. You're fueled by challenge. You stop playing small. You stop backing down. You rise not because it's easy, but because you made peace with hard. That self-control isn't restriction. It's freedom. The world teaches that freedom means doing whatever you want, whenever you want, with no rules, no boundaries, no limits. But that kind of freedom is an illusion. Living by impulse doesn't lead to freedom. It leads to chaos. It leads to regret, inconsistency, wasted time, and missed opportunities. True freedom is being able to say no when you need to walk away from what doesn't serve you, to stay focused when everything around you is a distraction. That kind of control over your choices is what gives you real power in life. There's a different kind of freedom that most people never talk about. The freedom that comes when you build the discipline to control yourself. When you don't need someone to force you to work. When you don't rely on reminders to stay consistent. When you've trained yourself to show up, to follow through, to finish what you start. That freedom allows you to move with confidence because you're not battling yourself every day. You're not constantly negotiating with laziness, cravings, or excuses. You know what needs to be done, and you do it. When you lack self-control, life becomes reactive. You react to problems instead of preparing for them. You react to feelings instead of acting from purpose. You make decisions based on emotion instead of vision. And the consequences of that aren't always immediate, but they always show up. It's the missed opportunity you didn't see because you were distracted. It's the relationship that fell apart because you couldn't manage your words. It's the dream that slipped away because you kept putting things off until tomorrow. That's not freedom. That's bondage disguised as liberty. Freedom is waking up early because you chose to take control of your time. Freedom is saying no to the party because you're focused on your goals. Freedom is pushing through the last set, the last rep, or the last hour of work because you made a commitment to yourself. Self-control creates structure, and that structure creates space for success. Without it, you're just drifting. You're moving, but you're not moving with intention. You're alive, but you're not living on purpose. The more self-control you build, the less you need to be pushed by others. You stop needing accountability partners to force you into motion. You stop relying on motivation to give you a spark. You become your own engine. You become self-regulating, self-driven, self-led. That's freedom. You don't need external permission. You've given it to yourself. And now instead of being pulled in 100 directions by temporary emotions, you stay centered on what truly matters. There's freedom in knowing that you're not at the mercy of your appetite, that you can walk away from temptation and stay aligned with your mission. There's freedom in discipline, freedom in habits, freedom in saying no to the wrong thing so you can say yes to the right one. It's not about living a boring life. It's about living a meaningful one. You don't sacrifice joy, you sacrifice distraction. You don't give up pleasure, you give up the pain that comes from living without purpose. When you master self-control, you gain freedom over your future. You're not just reacting to what life throws at you. You're building something. You're constructing a foundation brick by brick, decision by decision. You're building a body, a mindset, a legacy that lasts. And every time you choose discipline over indulgence, vision over impulse, commitment over convenience, you carve out a path that leads to a life on your terms. People think that boundaries limit them, but the opposite is true. Boundaries protect your focus. They preserve your energy. They help you say no to distractions without guilt. Self-control isn't about saying no forever. It's about saying no for now, so you can say yes to something greater later. That's freedom. It's being able to look back without regret because you didn't let the moment control you. You controlled the moment. You acted instead of being acted upon. You chose your future over your feelings. And the best part is that this freedom isn't something you have to wait for. You can start building it today, right now, with one decision, with one act of discipline, with one moment where you don't let the craving win. Every time you do that, you build strength. You build trust with yourself. And that trust becomes confidence. That confidence becomes momentum. That momentum becomes a lifestyle. You're not meant to be a slave to every thought that enters your mind. You're not meant to be ruled by urges, doubts, or temporary highs. You're meant to lead yourself, to choose your direction, to walk with purpose, to be free. Not because life gave you everything you wanted, but because you chose to build the life you needed, one disciplined step at a time. Motivation will get you started, but it's commitment that keeps you going. Too many people wait for the perfect moment, the right feeling, or the spark of inspiration before they move. They say things like, I'm just not feeling it today, or I'll start when I'm more motivated. But the truth is, motivation is unpredictable. It comes and goes. It comes and goes. Some days you wake up fired up, ready to conquer the world. Other days you wake up tired, uncertain, maybe even discouraged. If your actions depend on motivation, your results will always be inconsistent. But if you build your life on commitment, you move regardless of the mood. You move because you made a decision, not because you feel like it. Motivation is emotional. Commitment is intentional. One is a feeling, the other is a promise. A lot of people break promises to themselves because they built their foundation on how they feel. But feelings are liars. They'll tell you to take it easy when you should be pushing harder. They'll tell you to quit when the pressure rises. They'll convince you to choose temporary comfort over long-term growth. But commitment is solid. It doesn't waver when the weather changes. It doesn't back down because of obstacles. Commitment says, I'm doing this no matter what, and it holds you to that standard even when no one's watching. Success isn't reserved for the most talented or the most passionate. It's reserved for the most committed. The ones who say, this is what I want, and I'm willing to pay the price to get it. They don't just show up on the good days. They show up on the hard days, the boring days, the lonely days, the days where the work feels thankless and the results are invisible. That kind of consistency only comes from deep commitment. Not hype, not excitement, but an unshakable decision to keep going. Motivation is like fuel. It gets the engine running. But if the engine isn't maintained with commitment, it burns out. Well, many people start a project with energy, only to abandon it 2 weeks later. How many people get inspired to change, but then disappear as soon as life gets hard? The ones who win are the ones who understand that motivation may start the journey, but it won't sustain it. It's the daily grind, the routine, the sacrifice, the discipline. That's what builds something real. You don't need to feel inspired to take action. You just need to follow through on what you say you do. When you're committed, your actions don't depend on your feelings. They're tied to your purpose. You know why you're doing it, and that's why it keeps you moving. Even when motivation disappears, your mission stays. Even when doubt creeps in, your discipline speaks louder. That's the edge. That's the difference between temporary effort and lasting success. People waste too much time trying to stay motivated when they should be focused on staying committed. Motivation can be useful, but it's not reliable. There will be days where you don't feel it, and that's where most people fall off. They mistake the absence of motivation for a reason to stop. But the truth is, those days are the most important ones to keep going. Those are the days where you build grit, where you prove to yourself that you're serious, that you're not just in love with the idea of success, but you're willing to fight for it. Commitment is what carries you through the resistance. It's what keeps you steady when life throws curveballs. It's what gives your goals a foundation. Without commitment, your dreams are just wishes. Where they become a plan backed by action. It doesn't matter how slow the progress feels. As long as you stay committed, you're moving forward. Even if it's an inch at a time. Even if no one sees it. Even if you're the only one believing the vision. You keep going. Because commitment is about honoring your word to yourself. If you're waiting for motivation to strike every day, you'll stay stuck. The real shift happens when you say, no matter how I feel, I show up. That's when you become powerful. That's when your results start compounding. You're not just working when it's easy. You're working when it's hard. And that consistency builds resilience. It sharpens your edge. It separates you from everyone else who's still sitting around, waiting for the perfect moment to feel ready. The ones who build empires, the ones who leave legacies, they didn't do it because they were motivated every day. They did it because they were committed every day. Through the fatigue, through the setbacks, through the silence when no one believed in them. Commitment isn't glamorous, but it's what greatness is built on. Not the spark that gets you started, but the fire you keep feeding long after the spark is gone. Now it's on you. You got the vision. You got the desire. But the question is, do you have the discipline? Do you have the courage to choose growth over comfort, commitment over excuses, purpose over pleasure? Because the truth is, nothing changes until you do. The life you want, the person you're meant to become, it's all waiting on the other side of self-control. This is your moment. No more waiting. No more wishing. Lock in. Focus up. Control yourself, and you'll unlock a version of you that you've never met, but were always meant to become.